How you guys doing? I'll bring up the sheet in a moment. Just want to say the season is finally here. I'm happy to finally be covering the Cup Series on my own channel. I got my little Dale Earnhardt shirt on because, you know, we're celebrating his death and everything like that. My bad. We're celebrating his life. My bad. I apologize. But this is the Brandon Cruz Daily Fantasy Podcast, where I go and look at low and plays and strategies specifically designed for GPPs. And this is a show for people who are already informed on daily fantasy sports on these contests that operate. If you have any questions related to NASCAR that isn't a stupid question, feel free to shoot my way. BrandonCruzDFS on Twitter. Most importantly, take everything you hear with a grain of salt and use your best judgment when making entries. Additionally, if you have a gambling addiction, that is just not my problem. Check your sense of feelings at the door. Let's bring it up right here. Here's the sheet. If you want to support me, my Patreon is Brandon Cruz DFS on Patreon. You can support the channel, support me, get my projections for all three series, and get other things. I highly suggest you check it out if you want to support me. If not, I completely understand. Let's get right into this one here, because it should be, you know, pretty straightforward. If you guys understand how I approach these, you pretty much have a good idea. But we're going to go through, you know, each driver, each rating. And remember, because I know I'm going to get a lot of new viewers here, my rating is in my own head. This is kind of how I view the drivers here. So while you might see, you know, William Byron being a great play, Eric Almirola being a great play, I have him rated as an F and D, and I'll explain why that is in a second. But just explaining things, my interest, I normally fill this in, but like it's a plate track. I don't really let my interest get into the lineups too much. I kind of just let the optimizer and you know, I play positions, things like that. So, you know, this is kind of null and void this week, my interest. Projected finish is, you know, where I think they're going to finish right now. Obviously, this is on a Friday. I'm recording this Friday at noon. So, you know, obviously I can change my opinion between now and Sunday, but I don't really think I will be. Obviously, the ceiling is where these guys can finish, and you'll see a lot of guys, they have a ceiling to win the race. DNF factor is how likely they are to wreck, you know. I know it's a plate track. Everybody can win. Everybody can wreck. As they say in the Fox booth, as they said twice, I counted twice in the duels. They're like, anybody in this race can win the 500. You know, that's just how it is. Sponsored, obviously, this is more for like Truck Series and Xfinity Series. Everybody has a sponsor in this race. So let's go talk about some drivers and how I'm gonna really approach this race. Here, I probably need to do this so people. Let's go. Let's have this imaginary line right here on Michael McDowell. So this is half of the field. So for whenever I'm talking about playing a 4-2 strategy, playing a 3-3, whatever the case may be, if you're brand new to plate tracks or if you're brand new to DFS NASCAR, let's imagine this red line is half of the field. And so I'm going to primarily build lineups with most of the guys from the back half of the field. If you think half of the field is 20th, put the line at 20th. If you think the line is 24th, put the line at 24th. Whatever case may be, it doesn't really matter. I'm just doing this for the camera, for you guys to understand. But for this, for basically this, I mean, 17th is, you know, behind that is the back half of the field. Ahead of that is the front half of the field. I'm primarily going to run a 5-1 and 4-2 types of lineups. So 5 guys from the back half of the field with 1 guy from the front half, and then 4 guys from the back half of the field with 2 guys from the front half. I don't play drivers when I go to super speedways. And I have to explain this with, you know, if these races go green, if wrecks do not happen, I'm dead in the water. These lineups don't work. That's just how it is. So I have to preface this with all that. Is like, in order for my strategy to work, I need wrecks to happen. So I'm cheering for accidents. I'm cheering for career-ending injuries. That's how I am in these races. I want to see as much money torn up between these idiots on the track as possible. So when we get here, if this race goes green, if I don't have wrecks, you know, I'm not going to do very well. That's just how it is, you know. So going into this race, how am I looking at the field? What am I looking at drivers? I don't think Alex Bowman is going to be optimal. I don't see him leading a ton of laps. I mean, if you look at his history, sure, and I'm mainly looking at the last 4 plate races. Obviously, you can look back at when they were running kind of different packages and stuff, but I'm trying to look at the big behemoths of packs that these guys are running this weekend. These guys are nose to tail. Obviously, this race is going to be long. You're going to have guys get up to the top and run the wall for a good portion of the race, but we're going to get crazy. And specifically, the 500, and I talked about this in a video on my channel going into more detail of how I make lineups for the 500. These guys always wreck within the last 40 laps. Sometimes it's 5 to go, sometimes it's 10 to go. The main huge wrecks are going to happen towards the end of the race, so we need to keep that in mind when creating our lineups. So do I think Alex Bowman survives the chaos. I mean, he's starting first. If I was him, I'd change that motor. Come on, Hendrick. It doesn't matter who the pole sitter is. Who cares? Do you guys still care that Danica Patrick won a pole? Do you guys still care that Chase Elliott won a pole in his first start? Does that even matter? Who cares about the pole sitter? Just you got your pit selection already. Who cares if you go to the back for changing the motor? Just change the motor, Bowman. That's what I would do in real life. I don't think he's going to be very useful in fantasy. William Byron, still an F. I mean, I'm just not interested in him. If anything, I'm probably not playing probably the top. Maybe Austin Dillon and Eric Almirola in one lineup, but I'm not very interested in these guys. I don't think they're optimal. I think both these guys end up wrecking, despite the fact that we've seen these two cars specifically do very well at the plate tracks last year. Eric Almirola, you know, he's better than that. And my DNF factor, obviously everybody, oops, didn't mean to do that. Obviously anybody can wreck, anybody can, win this race. But this is I'm really trying to be specific on how likely it is that I think these guys wreck. And so that's why, some of these guys are high, some of these guys are medium, some of these guys are low based on how they finished of late. Christopher Bell, still interested in Bubba Wallace, and let's see. I already said I prefer teams to go to the back. I feel bad for Bubba Wallace, man. Like I'm a Bubba Wallace fan, and so obviously I've listened to a lot of interviews. I've listened to him talk about racing for 23XI Racing, and it's sad. It's so weird to say that because he has a great opportunity here, but him working for LeBron, how LeBron is viewing this, how people that he's talked to has interviewed him. I watched an interview with him and Shannon Sharp. They had a podcast together on Shannon's podcast, and Bubba just seems like he has so much pressure. I don't care. Listen, like, I don't care how much someone doesn't say, oh, the pressure isn't here. I don't, I'm not real pressured in. I'm just going to do the best I can. That's a lie. I left my water over there. That's a lie. Bubba has a lot of pressure on himself, and he has to perform. There's no ifs, ands, or buts. I mean, he himself wants to have 2 wins this year. Okay, that's a bit much. Jordan expected him to do way better than how he has been in this career, and Bubba has the talent, but I think he's having to push himself too much. We saw him how he was racing in the dual race. I mean, Bubba knows how to drive these plate tracks. He's finished, but he has the expectation between him, between the media. I mean, everybody's looking on Bubba right now. And if he's not up front, I feel like he feels like he's not doing justice to his sponsors, to his team, to his expectation for the fans. And I think that's a big issue. It's very similar to how Danica Patrick had a ton of attention and a ton of pressure on herself. I'm not comparing Bubba to Danica. Danica had no talent whatsoever. Bubba can at least drive a car. But all eyes are on Bubba. You saw in the dual race, he was blocking lanes, racing very aggressive. I've never seen Bubba race like that in a plate race. I know you guys haven't because you don't watch as many races as I do. I feel bad for Bubba. I think he's going to have a lot of mental battles this year with all that pressure. And because of that, I think he causes a wreck in the 500. I hate to say it, but I think he causes a wreck. And the projected finish, it's so hard. I mean, obviously, I don't have anybody projected to finish last. I have a lot of these guys projected to finish in the 20s. If they're like, 24th right here, I'm expecting a wreck. I think they're going to wreck and kind of just be there. I don't expect a lot of people to really get through this race. I think we will have maybe 12 cars on the lead lap at the end of this race. I expect this one to just be insane and wild. Lineups will primarily focus on good drivers and names, and we'll talk about that when we get farther down the starting grid. And this is a race to play no-name drivers with all the chalk down the line. Ryan Newman, I'm just not interested in him. Harvick would be a guy that I would imagine can lead laps. He will race up front. We saw him race up front in duels. He did exactly what I thought he would. If the 500 goes the way he wants it to go, he'll be up there again. Same with Joey Logano. Kyle Busch, if ownership up here, and I'm not talking about tons and tons of ownership, but a lot of people will be playing Logano probably as an early lap leader, or they're like, Penske guys always lead laps early, and they're always dominant at the plate track. So if Logano seems to carry ownership, I don't mind going to Kyle Busch or Kevin Harvick. Harvick should have much less ownership. At least he should. I mean, this is the one race where a lot of casuals come in. A lot of NASCAR fans who have no idea what they're doing are going to play that $15 GPP, and I'm mainly talking about that one there. So do we see people just play the big names? That's always difficult for me to see. I haven't seen any content related to this yet. I should be one of the first ones out there. So, this is what we have to learn throughout the weekend. Kyle Busch, he would probably be my favorite play between Harvick, Logano. I think Kyle does well. Kyle has had, pretty crappy races lately, but he's always up in the front. He gets caught up in wrecks. He gets caught up in so many accidents, and they're not his fault. He's just wrong place, wrong time. I don't mind Kyle Busch here. Ryan Preece, I'm not interested in. Chase Elliott, I expect him to be chalky. People are going to project him to be a lap leader. The public are going to play him like crazy. I like him. Larson should be lower owned. People aren't really sure what to do. Larson really impressed me in the dual races. I expect him to do well, but finishing where he did, what was that, 6th, 7th, or 8th in his duel was exactly what I wanted to see from this. He should do well. I think he gets caught up in a wreck because I see the wrecks happening up in the front in this race, especially late. That's usually how it always is. They almost always wreck for second at some point in the last 10 laps. So if that's the case, I think Larson's going to be, 5th, 6th, 7th at that point in the race, and I think he'll get caught up in a wreck, but that's just how it is. If you look at his recent races on plate tracks, I mean, he doesn't wreck as much as you would expect, specifically at Daytona. And I tend to lean, whenever we're at each of the tracks, Talladega, Daytona, I tend to lead how they do at that particular track because sure, it's still a plate track. Anyone can wreck, but if you see someone is typically better at Daytona or Talladega, it's usually based on how they're racing. Obviously, Daytona is a much smaller track, or it doesn't have as many lanes to work. They're still going to be 4 wide at points, probably 5 wide at some idiotic point, but his Daytona history looks extremely well. I don't mind him at all, especially at his price. I don't expect a lot of ownership. Ryan Blaney going to carry a lot of ownership. I mean, people are going to want to do a Penske stack. People are going to want to play the popular guys. So Blaney, Elliott, Logano, I just see them carrying a lot of ownership. I like Daniel Suarez a lot. He ran extremely well in the duel, and this car has a lot of speed. I tried to say that going in, and I'm not sure how it'll be at the 1.5 miles, but certainly here at the plate tracks, it'll be a contender. I think he does wreck out, but, there's a chance that he doesn't. There's a chance that he does. I mean, looking at his history, looking at the last 6 races, at this race, I mean, it's rough. I mean, obviously he missed the Daytona 500 last year, but this is looking at both plate tracks: 34th, 28th, 32nd, 26th, missed the 500 last year, 40th, and even going farther back at Daytona, 33rd, 35th, 37th, 17th, 29th. I mean, he's in a good ride. I like him, but I think he wrecks, man. I probably need to change that to high, but I'm not going to. Corey LaJoie, if people look at his finishing positions and decide to play this man, and I imagine he will, because at $5,800, if the public is really hammering the higher priced guys or individuals, Chase Elliott, Ryan Blaney, Martin Truex Jr., they're going to end at a place where you see Corey LaJoie amongst a bunch of no-name hacks in the back when you get kind of down the price range. I hate Corey LaJoie in this area. Sure, he's finished extremely well, and outside of the Dega fall race last year, he hadn't finished any worse than 21st in the last 8 races. But he had a fuel pump issue last year, and we won't really get into that too much. I think LaJoie gets in a wreck. I think he has the same mentality as Bubba Wallace, just no outside pressure on him. And he's not running that same chassis that Go Fast had last year. He's in a different car. I think that chassis was the main reason why he was doing so well at these plate tracks. I'm not interested in it at all. Michael McDowell, I don't mind him. He's, like I said, he's right at the cusp of this imaginary line that I would look at. I don't expect a lot of ownership. If there's ownership, it's going to be going to Ryan, Larson, Elliott, Reagan, McMurray, Kurt Busch, and Stenhouse. Michael McDowell might get left on the outside looking in terms of ownership, so might want to keep that in mind. I don't really like him, but I'll probably end up playing a lineup with McDowell. Just saying, I'll probably play a lineup with everybody starting 16th on back for sure. David Reagan, I like him. He's making a one-off start here, and Reagan knows what he's doing. You know what he did? He rode in the back in the duel. He wasn't racing. He wasn't being stupid. If he does the same thing in this race, which I hope he does, he has a good chance of finishing well. If he doesn't, he has a good chance of wrecking, but that's everybody. Jamie McMurray, and I'll go over the guys that I'm really looking at after we go through the field. McMurray, I mean, he already wrecked in his final race, the one he was going to retire in the 500. And the way he was racing in that race was stupid. In that 40 car, he was up making dumb moves, up trying to win the race way too early, and he got caught up in a wreck. I would hope that his little pea-brain understands, hey, don't race this way. Try and at least finish your last race, driver. So hopefully he learns from his final race in the 500 a couple years back and doesn't race like an idiot. But it's Jamie McMurray, so we'll probably see him racing like an idiot. Kurt Busch, like him. Stenhouse, I like him. Ownership, I can't tell the ownership here. People are terrified to play Stenhouse Jr., and yes, Stenhouse will either win the race or wreck. He's way riskier here starting 21st than he has been in previous races where he's starting farther back. 21st, he might be a really good ownership play because I don't see a lot of ownership going to him. Maybe, let's say, probably in the 30s, low 30s. That's what I'd have to imagine him at. Kurt Busch probably be around that as well. So, not the chalkiest plays, but it depends on what contest you're in. Are people really risking it all on Stenhouse or not? Chris Buescher, I don't mind him. I don't like Buescher a ton. I mean, he's not clicking off for me as a guy that I really need to look at, but his last 4 finishes, I mean, last year, him, who was the other guy I was talking about? I guess you could throw Corey LaJoie in that. Buescher actually has the best finishes. Maybe Newman. I think I was looking at Newman earlier. I forgot what. Oh yes, Denny Hamlin and Chris Buescher. That's why I was looking at the wrong area. Chris Buescher, his last 4 finishes on plate tracks: 6th, 6th, 9th, and 3rd. And yes, I still call them plate tracks. If you don't like it, get out of here. Denny Hamlin, his last 4 races: 1, 4, 3, and 1. Chris Buescher and Denny Hamlin have the best recent history at these plate tracks. I don't know how much people are going to look into that. I don't know if he's going to be a chalky play because if everybody's playing guys who finish well at plate tracks, you're going to see it. A lot of Denny Hamlin and a lot of Chris Buescher. If a lot of people are talking up Chris Buescher, I'm going to be under the field because I certainly do not want to be on high-owned plays here at Daytona, especially in a race that I think they're going to wreck a ton. I just want to get off that. So it's difficult. We might have to change him to a C just because I don't like the ownership that I'm seeing there. But he's a great play. But if the ownership is just looking like everybody's going to use him as a one-off or a pivot or whatever, I don't like it at all. Matt DiBenedetto, he very fast at the plate tracks, just seemed to get caught up in accidents here and there. Daytona is typically better than Talladega. He should finish, top 15 if everything goes well. Brad Keselowski, Denny Hamlin, Martin Truex Jr. I mean, these guys are going to be chalk city. My main man, pricing is extremely soft. You can easily throw these 3 guys in the lineup, and I would advise that. If you're playing cash, I don't know why you would, but if you're a new guy, not knowing what to do, just play these 3 guys, call it a day, get out of here. That's how it is. Now, everybody and their grandmother is going to have that mentality. So, I don't want to play, even in my lineups, I don't know if I want to play more than 2 of these guys in a lineup. Depends. Or maybe if I do play these 3 guys, play guys with really low ownership. Maybe throw Derek Cope in there. Oh, Derek Cope. Look, yes, the guy, whatever, we'll talk about him when we get there. But yeah, I mean, these guys are great plays. They all have a chance to win the race. If I had to look at them, Martin Truex Jr. has a higher chance of wrecking Denny Hamlin. I think his luck runs out. I think he's just been extremely lucky. And I have a quick story here. I have a friend of mine who gets these premonitions and everything. And last year, he was like, but this was before the race. Last year, he was like, hey, Newman is going to flip in the trial this year. He's going to get hit by another car. It's like, you're an idiot. And he does it. It happens. And he's done that before where he says things that happen. And now he's yapping in my ear. At the end of last year when Hamlin won that Talladega race, he was like, Hamlin's going to win that race because that's what Dale would do. He's going to go through the field like Dale did on his last win at Talladega and go through the field. What happened? Denny Hamlin went through the field. He went through the field. He almost did a spitting image of what Earnhardt did in terms of how well he went through the field. And now my friend is still yapping in my ear. Hey, Denny Hamlin and Dale Earnhardt had the same back surgery. Hey, Dale Earnhardt and Denny Hamlin, they both started a team around the same time. Hey, Denny Hamlin and blah, blah, blah. Long story short, my good friend thinks Denny Hamlin dies in this race following the Dale Earnhardt saga. 20 years to the year. I mean, obviously, I'm talking a bunch of propaganda here, but I got my friend telling me, "Hey, don't play Denny Hamlin. There's a good chance he wrecks in turn 4." And I'd be lying if I said that wasn't playing a factor in how I'm viewing Denny Hamlin this weekend. Do with that story as you may. Cole Custer, starting 22nd, shouldn't carry that much ownership, $6,700. So maybe people have to go that way when they're making lineups, but I don't mind him at all. I actually prefer him over these 3 guys just in terms of ownership. Moving down, looking at Joey Gaze, we got to talk about the Rick Ware cars right fast. I know a lot of shit is being thrown their way, but look, don't blame Rick Ware. Blame NASCAR with the stupid charter system, okay? I admit, yeah, the Rick Ware cars do not deserve to be in this race, but they are. Joey Gaze was about the only Rick Ware car who didn't have an issue in the dual races. He was running in the pack, didn't really lose the pack. We saw him up there the whole time, and obviously he's saving the car. He isn't one to really run up there, but we saw how good this car is. I don't mind him. People are not going to play Joey Gaze because they're scared of these guys, so keep that in mind. I think Gaze is awesome. Tyler Reddick, Chase Briscoe, good plays, but the ownership. If you're a casual, who are you playing? Are you playing Tyler Reddick? Are you playing Chase Briscoe over Joey Gaze? No. Dude, you're smoking crack if you're playing Joey Gaze over these guys, which I'm going to be in that camp, not the crack camp, but I'm going to be in the camp playing Gaze and those people like that. Eric Jones should be a great play. A lot of chalk his way. Derek Cope. I wasn't able to figure out what happened with Cope. He's about the only guy, and I guess I need to look through let's talk about Derek Cope really quick. I don't know what's his problem. Him coming into this race is really like he doesn't give a flying what. And I'm trying not to curse as much. I know I already said the S word one time, but he doesn't care at all. Cope doesn't care at all. He's like, I have a charter. I'm going to go and race. This is my team. I'm going to show up. Now, he hasn't really been in a plate track in a real race for almost 16 years. He tried to qualify for the 500, I think, 9-10 years ago in a duel. He didn't make it. So his last good race was at Talladega in like 2006, 2007, where he only did 8 laps before he parked it. So this man hasn't been in a plate race. He hasn't really been in a race in like 16 years. So Cope's like, I'm not on social media. I don't care what people think of me. Look, Cope, we're not trying to be assholes to you. We're not purposely, roasting you this is nothing personal. If any old coot came out there and wanted to race, I'd be saying the same thing. We'd all be saying the same thing. Now, 2 things that are very worrying. One, he was really off pace. He went 2 laps down. He went 2 laps down in 24 laps. I think they were having motor issues because the rest of the Rick Ware cars did have issues as well. But man, that is slow. I don't know what that looks like in the race. If this race does go green and they don't wreck to the end of the race, you're going to run into a situation where even if Cope is still on the track, he might not be able to pass those guys that wreck out before the race is over. Another thing that this is what I really didn't like. Midway through his duel, they were lapping him entering 3. And if you watch how they lap BJ McLeod, if you watch how they lap people who know what they're doing, Timmy Hill, people like that, they hold the yellow line. The lap car holds the inside lane, and I mean, they are grinding against that yellow line the whole time. Cope is like 3 or 4 feet off that yellow line both times they lapped him. So that's worrying because I don't think Cope understands how really this racing is. I know he watches it, but if you're not in that seat week in and week out, especially here, if you ever hear an interview about Brendan Gaughan, he talks about how the plate racing really changed and how he approached it. That's what Cope needs. He needs more track time, and he doesn't have track time to do very well. Another thing is, I don't know why people didn't click. People were like, oh, Truex. I saw this on Twitter. Truex sucks at plate tracks. I can't believe I played Truex. I know Fox didn't catch it, but I think that Cope lost his motor or was under power or something happened. He was going to coast back to pit road. and he didn't realize how fast that pack was coming. If you look at any of the angles, you see Truex, he's riding the yellow line, he's racing, and then he just shoots up the track. People are like, oh, Truex is blocking like an idiot. He doesn't know what's happening. Why is he falling back? And then you see this just stopped vehicle right on the yellow. I mean, yeah, sure, he's coming towards the grass when you see him, but my hypothesis is that Derek Cope was halfway on the apron, halfway on the track. Truex was terrified he was going to Kevin LePage the field. Truex moves up the track, and it just so happens when he does that, Cope moves away from the track. That's why Truex got passed in his duel, because he was afraid Cope was going to Kevin LePage the field. And I agree with it. I think that's what happened. So that's extremely worrying. I think Cope is extremely low owned in the 500, and for good reason. Even I'm hesitant to play him, but I'm probably going to play him and just hope to God that they have wrecks early and that he doesn't cause it. If Cope causes a wreck, it's not going to be him racing in the pack. It's going to be him being a lap car doing something stupid, which is a shame. So that's my rant on Cope. Quinn Hoff, same deal, just doesn't have as high of a wreck factor. Obviously, I still have him high. But these guys need wrecks to work, and that's what I'm going to lean towards. Like I said, I'm going to lean towards people wrecking, but that's just how it's going to be. Ross Chastain, probably going to be chalky. People are going to be like, oh, he's in a good car. We at least recognize his name from the Xfinity Series. And when you're back here and you're playing guys from the back, which I highly encourage you, if you're playing guys from the back, don't worry who the names are. But I know when I say play guys from the back and you're making your lineup and you're going to put money on it, do you want to put money on Ross Chastain or Derek Cope? I mean, it's Ross Chastain. I love Cody Ware. Cody Ware did extremely well at the fall Talladega race last year. He just got wrecked on the last lap, and he still finished 19th. If he didn't get wrecked, Cody Ware was looking for a 14th, 15th place finish. I think he does extremely well. I think he does the same thing. He had a fueling mistake on pit road, and he lost the draft. That's why we saw him get lapped, and that's why we saw him off the pace. They were saving the car, but they had a fueling issue. That was a pit road issue. It wasn't the car issue there. Anthony Alfredo going to a backup car. I would prefer that. Ownership's going to be on him because, do you want to play Cody Ware, Josh Bilicki, or Anthony Alfredo? Most people are going to be like, I want to play Anthony Alfredo. I like Josh Bilicki. He had overheating issues. They're going to replace the radiator. They have practice to fix, or they have another practice session, which might be washed out. I mean, look, we keep this. There's a good chance this 500's ran on Tuesday or later in the week with all the rain they got coming their way, because they don't have to move. They don't have to leave. This is a unique situation to where if this race gets rain, they might, or if this weekend gets washed out, they're racing here, for round 2 of the Cup Series. They might just race the 500 on Thursday. So don't be shocked if you see that. But they should have this overheating issue fixed. If that's the case, I don't see that they're going to struggle as bad. And we saw it last year without practice. Some of these Rick Ware cars or some of the underfunded cars would, go into the garage early to fix something or be multiple laps down, when that's because they didn't have practice. If he would have started the 500 with this radiator, say last year, started a race with this, he would have been in the garage. He would have not been useful. Now that they have the opportunity to go in there, fix this, understand that, hey, I'm overheating, I got to fix some stuff here, he shouldn't have that issue right off the bat in the race and can be very viable. My favorite play, I've been saying this on the Dirty Air podcast all over the place, is BJ McLeod. I love this car, and not necessarily the paint scheme. I mean, I like what they're bringing to the track. In terms of the smaller teams, in terms of the underfunded teams, I think this might be a bit better than some of the Rick Ware cars here. A lot of money going into this car. I like it. BJ says he likes it. He was very fast in the draft. He looked very comfortable. He went a lap down, but that's because he pitted by himself. He was trying to avoid. He expected wrecks to happen entering pit lane, so he pitted by himself in the duel, which it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter in the duel. The races don't matter. So he at least got that. When Briscoe and Gralla and those guys wrecked at a turn 2, he was actually behind him, and you can see him in the back. He locked the brakes up, spun the car around, didn't get any damage. He was just making sure he didn't wreck the car, and right after that, he went to the garage to basically just save the car. They didn't need to learn anything else there. So I really like BJ McLeod. Austin Cindric and Kaz Gralla, you kind of have to play these guys if you're looking at playing guys from the back. Going to be very chalky because people are going to want to play these guys over the Quinn Hoffs, Cody Ware, BJ McLeod, Josh Bilicki, drivers like that. there's a good chance that both these guys wreck. I would put more faith into Kaz Grala doing well than Austin Cindric spinning out, because Cindric looked extremely loose once he got into a run. I'm not sure if that was the tires. I'm sure the engineers are going to fix that, but that's concerning that you saw how good Cindric was, and then obviously he sped on pit road. I'm not really concerned about that because it was 0.44 of a mile per hour. I'm sure he doesn't do that again, but in the draft he looked a bit squirrely. He looked a lot like Bubba Wallace in the sense of kind of all over the place, so you have to keep that in mind. Now, I don't normally talk in detail about FanDuel, but I'm telling you, if you're playing FanDuel, here, we're going to just move this down here. We're going to just actually and I was going to try and do something funny, but if you're playing FanDuel, this is your player pool. Nobody plays these guys. I got extremely low ownership on a lot of the no names on FanDuel. That's how I'm going to play FanDuel. And DraftKings is probably going to be very similar to where I'm going to focus on a lot of the no-name drivers. Probably mix them in with some chalky plays here and there, but I'm going to hope that this race is a wreck fest. I'm going to hope that a lot of lineups don't go to the same plays as I do, and I'm going to extremely play ownership. So I'm recording this on Friday morning. When we get later in the week, tomorrow, Saturday morning, I want to see what people are saying. And Sunday morning, 10 a.m. Eastern Time, Race with the Prize, and I will be live discussing this race on my YouTube channel. So come check that out. We're trying to not overlap another person's live stream. It's getting more and more difficult with people doing them, but if we do live stream at 10 a.m. in the morning, we should be the only one, and everybody can come in, ask us questions, or at least talk to us about that. So if you like anything, if you like what I said here, consider supporting me. Hit that subscribe button with your fist on your computer if you want. Hit the like button with a baseball bat like Negan to Glenn's head. Do whatever you want to do. Thank you for listening, and best of luck, guys. It's a great American race. Do it for Dale. Go Dale Earnhardt. Let's go, buddy boy. Do it for Dale.